You have to start. What? 3 hours? I'll go ahead and get started here. My vision, so this is the first launch and learn session that we're going to do. There's some people here on the phone call. I'm actually recording this, so at any time people can go back and watch it. We'll put it on the drive, or it'll be on YouTube or in some sort of repository. But my idea for this is that this will be sort of reflective and interactive for everybody. We can all contribute to the conversation as we go through each point. So for those that don't know me, my name is Reeve Lambert, and this is over leadership and group development through the eyes of NASA's Flight Office Directorate. So that's the mission controllers and everybody that's in the room actually controlling the message, and this is their path to success in leadership and group development, and sort of what they do. So has anybody here heard the Flight Officer's Creed before? Probably not. Okay. So this is the Flight Operations insignia, and so really the path to success, they have 3 main points. The first is to instill within ourselves the qualities essential to professional excellence: discipline, competence, confidence, responsibility, toughness, teamwork, and vigilance. We're going to go through each one of these points individually coming forward. But the 2 things I want to point out are the last 2 points that were pushed forward later in the lifetime of Flight Office Directorate. And the first one is to always be aware that suddenly and unexpectedly we may find ourselves in a role where our performance has ultimate consequences. For the Flight Operations Directorate and the Flight Office Directorate, obviously you're dealing with manned space flight, so it's very different there. Everything has to be perfect. And that's what drives the rest of these requirements, is that path to perfection. And lastly, down at the bottom there is to recognize that the greatest error is not to have tried and failed, but that in trying we did not give it our best effort. You probably all heard something like this before, but in all of this, being vigilant, having that teamwork, being tough, having these aspects to put forth your best effort. So the first thing that we're going to go through is discipline. And what does discipline in a teamwork environment mean to you guys? that interact. You're supposed to talk.
You have your own deadlines. You make sure that you get that done. More of a personal thing than a disciplining others feel. That came out wrong. Holding others to deadline.
Okay, so discipline is working towards that deadline, towards that end goal, and making sure it's done on time. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Grace? So you're saying part of discipline is having that ownership and taking responsibility for it. Okay. Anybody else? Specifically what discipline means? So some of the thoughts that I had on discipline. So the Flight Office Directorate says discipline is being able to follow as well as to lead, knowing that we must master ourselves before we can master our task. So discipline is an internal, intrinsic property for them. Having those goals on task is also respecting opinions and following it. Discipline is knowing when to speak up, being respectful of others, knowing that even though if I'm a leader and I'm talking to you guys right now, if you have something important to say, it is my responsibility to listen to you and to be disciplined in that conversation. And then, like Ben said earlier, staying focused on a goal, working towards a plan. A lot of people dictate how you work towards a goal. The way I was taught, and a lot of people agree upon, is you have a 3-step process. You have a vision, and you have a goal, and you have a plan. So your vision is, what do you want to achieve? So for us, we started as, let's something into space. Now Catis has their own specific payloads. We want to launch a balloon that will go around the Earth. We want to do X, we want to do Y. We want to launch a satellite that can take images of the hazardous algal blooms in Lake Erie. Those are our visions. That's our grand idea. That's what we want to work towards. Our goal is the next step refined from that, is what are your objectives towards that vision? What do we have to do each and every week? That's getting to the plan. But the goal is, what are the steps that we have to make to get that vision? So your goal might be to going back to the hazardous algal bloom scenario, pairing that imager with some of the optics that are needed to see that. That's a goal, having that pairing. And your plan is those week-by-week steps to work that goal. And they all flow up and flow down to achieve that final vision. So, at NASA, at Johnson Space Center, all over the place, there's discipline that has to be added towards a vision. And that vision is to send somebody to Mars. That's one of the driving visions at the moment. One of the goals is to have something that can get you there, like the Space Launch System. For the plan, you need to have all the departments across multiple NASA centers work together to effectively work towards that goal. You have to have somebody that creates the boosters, somebody that creates the assembly process for the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen tanks. That's moving up towards that vision of sending something to Mars. Next is competence. That's the next main objective in a group environment. What is competence? Ben?
The ability to perform. I'm just going to cut it off there. The ability to people or to your task.
So, am I right in just summing it up by saying it's the ability to complete a task?
Or even work with people.
Okay.
It can be people competent too.
Okay, so FOD, the Flight Office Directorate, says about competence, there being no substitute for total preparation and complete dedication for space, will not tolerate the careless or indifferent. Space is a harsh environment. What we do, what we send up on altitude balloons, what we launch into space, anything could go wrong there. So you have to be competent about the work that you're doing. You have to be able to complete that task to the best of your ability. That involves planning, going back to the previous slide, and then leaving no question unanswered. Always ask questions. Ask questions to make sure everything works properly. Know every possible scenario. Going through, be diligent and intentional about your work. The definition of diligence is about being careful and persistent in your effort. That persistence, always going through and completing the work to the best of your ability, and testing your hypotheses, testing to make sure that what you believe to be right, how you perceived your competence when you did this thing, making sure it's right. This is a picture of Test Chamber A in Building 32 at NASA Johnson Space Center. It's not the world's biggest vacuum chamber. That's here at Plumbrook, here in Ohio. But it is the largest thermally controlled vacuum chamber. What you see there in this picture is the Apollo capsule and module on a test stand. And you can see some people down at the bottom of the image that sort of gives you an idea of the size of that. This test actually had astronauts in the capsule. The entire floor of this vacuum chamber rotates. But to test the workings of the capsule, the heating and cooling of it, what they actually did was they put heat lamps to simulate the sun, put the entire structure on the stringy turntable and turned it like it would in space. And they tested the entire system with the people inside of it to make sure that their work that they did met that ability to complete that task. That work was done successfully. And that goes back to that plan, goal, and vision that we keep talking about, right? You have your vision, your goal, and your plan, and you have your plan to work towards the goal, and your goal will be tested. And you got to make sure that you did that right. So the next point that they lay down is, what do we think about confidence in a teamwork environment? Why is confidence important? It's ironic. There is no confidence in the room. So speaking up. Anything else? Yeah. So you're confident in the work that you've done, or you're sure that your work or whatever has happened will succeed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So success. Is that a good way to sum it up? Okay, cool. Anything else? Okay. So FOD says about it that believing in ourselves as well as others, knowing that we must master fear and hesitation before we can succeed. We have to master fear and hesitation to succeed. Grace talked about speaking up, mastering that hesitation, asking those important questions to make sure what can be done is done. And through speaking up with confidence adds to your competence. Sorry, too many C's. And that all builds and accumulates together. Instilling confidence in others through positive reinforcement. If you're leading or if you're in a group environment, if somebody has the confidence to speak up or anything of that sort, have that positive reinforcement, foster an environment where people can speak up, can speak confidently. Doing work confidently is important. If you don't believe in yourself, your work isn't going to be as good. That's a great example of that is in sports. Believing that you can get that best time is important. And that's also true at NASA. This is a picture of the National Buoyancy Lab at NASA Johnson Space Center. So this is where astronauts, before they ever fly an EVA in space or anything, they will suit up in their suits and be immersed in this tank that's about, it's a little longer than an Olympic swimming pool, but it's about 80 feet deep. So it's really deep. They have people in scuba suits assisting the astronauts and watching them. But the astronauts will suit up and be weighted so that the air inside their suit and the weights are equalized so that they're buoyant and they float around just like they're in space. And so they have to walk through each EVA task inside of this tank. And that what that does is it builds that confidence for their tasks that they have to do while they're in orbit, while they're on the International Space Station. It hits them over the fear and the hesitation of if something were to go wrong. If it goes wrong in here, in that testing, working towards that vision, it's not a big deal. But when you get it right over and over, that instills confidence in people through the positive reinforcement of success. Like Grace said, exactly, speak up, ask questions, always speak with confidence through experience, just like astronauts do in the True Buoyancy Lab, or we do working practice problems at school. In our classes, when we do miniatures prototyping or tests for any sort of a project, whether it's on a altitude balloon or on a satellite, there is we're building confidence through experience. We're building confidence in the success of our design. Responsibility. We all always talk about responsibility. Ben?
Owning up to not only things that you need to get done, but that you have done.
Hmm? So owning up to things that you have done and not done. Okay. Anybody else? So FOD says responsibility is realizing that it cannot be shifted to others, for it belongs to each of us. We must answer what we do or fail to do. Ben hit it right on the head there. So the thing I want to point out is that the success of a project is the responsibility first and foremost of its leader. At least when I talk to people at co-op, when I work with other people, one of the things they look for in a leader is somebody that when something goes wrong, they take the blame for it. It's the leader's job to make sure that stuff is get done. And when that happens, that doesn't mean that what I want to say is that doesn't mean that if somebody just doesn't do the work in a group project in class, that whoever's was dictated the group project should get all the blame for that. That's not how it works. But you should take the group success upon yourself. So when somebody doesn't know how to do anything, set some time aside, help them work through that, build upon the success of everybody, and then act with integrity. Do stuff intentionally. Don't just go with the flow and wait for things to happen. Learn from your mistakes when they do go wrong. When you act with integrity, when you purposefully do something, sometimes that's going to go wrong. Learn from those mistakes. One of my professors right now builds labs specifically so that you fail. Not so that you get a failing grade on the report, but so that you don't get the numbers you expect to get, because you learn from mistakes more than your successes. But your mistake won't mean anything if you don't act with integrity and take responsibility for that mistake. Next up is toughness. Why is that important to the group? Grace? So I got constructive, being able to take constructive criticism. And what was the other one? So also persistence through difficult problems. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Staying level, like being able to, like, don't let it put you down.
Mhm. So I'm going to put that down as recoiling from failure. Anybody else? So toughness. FOD says taking a stand when we must, to try again, even if it means following a more difficult path. So I have some notes here. Grace hit it right on the head with constructive criticism. I didn't put that down. It's a really good point. But that sort of goes into rebounding from failure. Don't let stuff put you down. Make your failure and make yourself and your product better because of it. Here I have pictured on the screen SDS 107, SDS 51, and the Apollo 1 / it's also known as AS 204. Those are three of the biggest failures that cost people their lives with NASA. At Johnson Space Center, each conference room has a big plaque with each of these mission patches on it, right next to the projector in the screen. So in this room with this screen, they'd be sitting right here in the corner of the room. And they're up there to remind us why we need to be tough and to remind us that our actions have consequences, integrity, and to take a stand when necessary. It teaches us that when we see something go wrong, with the Columbia disaster, for those that don't know, is caused by a foam strike on the leading edge of the wing onto the reinforced carbon that protects it from heat during reentry. They had known about this for a while. It had happened on many other shuttle missions before. None of them had ended badly. So some high-level executives within the organization signed off on it and said that it was okay because the previous missions had been okay with it. It didn't look out of the ordinary. So it's taking a stand when necessary. If you're somebody project who's new to the organization, something isn't wrong or if something smells fishy or if it's wrong, if you see something wrong in a calculation, always speak up. If you feel that the path that our organization is going on, whether it be from leadership structure, always speak up. And I would encourage you, if that ever happens in this organization, that you do speak up and somebody shames you for it or puts you down for it, talk to me, talk to somebody. That's not right. Always speak up. But when you do speak up, don't do it for personal gain of whatever you're working on or the organization as a whole. Sometimes that involves taking a difficult path. I know from some of the work that I've done with some of the power management stuff, a lot of times, sometimes an easy path would be taking a simulation or a program that somebody else wrote and trying to modify it for your application, which is great to do, and it's great as a starting point. But when I did that, I noticed that there were a lot of holes in it, a lot of things that it wasn't answering. So sometimes that toughness, that persistence through a difficult scenario, is what counts in the toughness, sticking through it to make sure that your answer and your competence is as high. Next up is teamwork. Everybody's a lot to say about teamwork. What's good and what's bad. So run out of room here. Teamwork. What do we think about the effects of teamwork in a group environment? Don't shout it out all at once.
Ideally, two
Heads. Two heads are better than one. Transparency. Increased efficiency. Yeah. Okay, so a good balance in a group dynamic, so everybody's functioning together towards that. Yeah. Okay. So a good group dynamic Do you have another one?
Yeah.
A sense of kinship amongst the team.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So FOD says that respecting and utilizing the abilities of others, realizing that we work toward a common goal for success depends the effort of all. Everybody hit it: increased efficiency, transparency, good group dynamics and kinships amongst everybody, and multiple heads being better than one. That sums up that really well. And part of that, everybody working together, is having a leader, somebody that helps that group dynamic push forward with delegation. Having everybody know what they're working on and working on towards that goal. So some of the notes that I put down were not to blindly assign tasks for each task. And that's why interviews happen. That's why building a team is important. That's why when you build that kinship is what dictates how well the team works and who gets what assignment. Knowing everybody extremely well. And then help out and guide where/when necessary. And mentioned this recently, I don't remember which slide it was, but that, it's the leader's responsibility to lead that. And when something goes wrong, you can set aside and guide team members through whatever difficult part they're going through and help foster that learning environment, teach from those mistakes. We talked about group dynamics and kinship. There are 4 main sections of group performance when a group comes together: storming, forming, norming, and performing. Lots of things. They all flow. They don't have to flow in order. They can go backwards. They can go top to bottom. But the way it works is storming is when a first team comes together and there's no cohesion amongst the group, and everybody's butting heads. Thunderclouds in the air, everybody's very unhappy. Forming is when you start to develop and understand who is in your team, what people are good at. Ben, you're really good at earth science stuff. Why don't I allow you to work on some of those things to develop the project? Norming is when everybody's starting to fire on all cylinders. Not only do I know that Ben's good at something, Ben knows that I'm good at something. We respect each other's opinions. We move forward in that. And performing is that peak level efficiency, when everybody's working effectively towards a goal. And for each of these steps, you might want to delegate or work with your team in a different state. Storming is a lot of where that guidance is going to come in. Has anybody heard of the EDGE method of guiding and teaching? So EDGE stands for EDGE as in EDGE. EDGE stands for educate, demonstrate, guide, and enable. So when you are working with somebody through a group, you're going to educate, you're going to tell them how to do something, right? And notice how there are 4 of these and 4 of the storming, forming, norming, and performing. They work with each other. So if you're a leader or you're leading a team, if they're storming and they don't know what to do, everybody's fighting amongst each other, that's when you're going to be educating them. If you have a group together that's building a ground station, or a group together that's designing a camera, when that group comes together, they're not going to fully know how to build that camera, what to go into making the camera. And so they're going to be storming. Everybody's going to be trying to do different things. Nothing's going to be organized right. So you need to educate them on how to build that camera, on what the best way to go is to do it. And when people start to understand what it entails, they'll start to form into a team. That's when you get into that forming stage. Now, along with that comes demonstrate. That's when you're going to demonstrate. If there's a document, for example, of someone needs to make a requirement list for how to build that camera. You might create a template for that list and create a couple of the requirements to demonstrate them. Here's sort of the steps they're going towards to build that camera. And then norming, when people are starting to function together, is when you're going to guide them. You're going to guide them with, here are a couple of base goals on the process to go in the camera. Here's a little bit of input. Yeah, you got that right. No, maybe not there. Try this or that. And then enable is part of being a leader when people are performing is knowing when to step away, knowing not to micromanage. When the team doesn't need to be educated, doesn't need to be guided on their process, it's important for a leader to be able to step back and let things function normally. And that happens when the team's performing. Does that make sense to everybody? Sort of a bit group dynamic. So that's how you can try and build that kinship and group dynamic. And so if somebody's performing and then they hit a snag and that that toughness isn't there, or they grind to a halt on a difficult task, they might go back to forming. That group might start chugging its wheels, start troubleshooting stuff like that. And as a leader who knows sort of the process and the trouble they're going through, might go back to the demonstrator, might jump in situation and start doing some of the work with them, start helping them through that to get them back up to that performing. So it's a fluid process, but it's sort of a quasi leadership model for how to do that. Does that make sense? Okay. I think the last step is vigilance. What is vigilance?
Constantly looking for something that either needs to be done, needs to be fixed, always looking out for something that has yet to be seen.
So looking out for the unseen or undone. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Grace?
Awareness of the quality of your work at all times and the timeline that you want.
So an awareness of your work and the time limit that work is being done on. Anybody else? So vigilance, FOD says vigilance is always attentive to the dangers of spaceflight, never accepting success as a substitute for rigor in everything we do. We hit that right in the head, looking out for the unseen or undone. Speaking up when something is wrong or doesn't make sense. Something I didn't think about, but that is a good point, is the looking out for the unseen or undone again. Being intentional, doing things before they're asked of you. Knowing the process can help you know that, okay, I have my level 1 requirements done for this subsystem. And I know the next step is I need to create a plan to reach the goal of developing a prototype for that. So being able to start that and knowing the process and work ahead of the schedule. So when, this is helpful in co-op. This is something that can help you get hired or promoted within an organization, is if somebody comes to you and says, hey, now we need the timeline to achieve X or Y goal. Then if you already have that done or have it worked and can enter that conversation knowing what needs to be done, and that's really helpful. But I underlined this on the presentation, but never accepting success as a substitute for rigor. For some people, success comes easily, and for some projects, success comes easily. But sometimes the simplest of tasks aren't done with the rigor that they need to be done. Creating a bill of materials is the easy task. Supposed to be the easy task. Doesn't always end up that way. But writing down your masses, what you want to build with, that's supposed to be the easy task. Assembling it, doing the equations, modeling it, that's supposed to be the hard task, but that's what we all enjoy doing. But if that bill of material isn't right, then the spacecraft isn't going to work. And so if we don't do the simplest things with the rigor that they should have, if we don't respect their importance, even if it's a menial task, then it's not good for the overall success of the mission. So success, going back to that Columbia disaster, just because those other shuttles that had launched and seen the same type of foam strike, the same damage, had re-entered and done everything successfully, doesn't mean that you should substitute that success for the rigor of inspecting it, of making sure everything is right. So easy success doesn't mean that you shouldn't put in the effort or double check your work. That's everything I have. Just going through the talking points of the directorate at NASA on the things they see build in leadership. Anybody have any questions or anything like that? I'll get to the questions on the call here in a second. We have some of the room. Grace?
So where did you
Out of all of these, and I'll say this for the people on the call too. This is going to be, this presentation and this recording is going to be online, so it can be watched at a later date. Wherever it is, I'm going to take these up and put them on there as a document too, so we can have these. Sorry.
So first items.
So the question was, as far as CubeCats goes, which items do I see the most room for improvement? I think the biggest room for improvement is really the competence and the teamwork. Is what I'd say. Competence is hard. I'm not competent. I have to work on a bunch of stuff, but I'm just a fourth year undergrad. What the hell he's doing? So competence is something that we have to work hard towards. And the nice thing about this list that's been created, discipline, competence, confidence, responsibility, toughness, vigilance, and teamwork, they all play together. So to be, and I don't know anything, I have to be disciplined in learning that and doing the work correctly, and I have to be confident to speak up and ask questions when it doesn't go right. So they all interconnect very well. But I'd say the biggest thing is the competence and the teamwork. Being a university that has co-op, a lot of teams meet face-to-face all the time. We don't have that. There's a lot of things that we're trying to build. We're a very new organization. So having that teamwork structure isn't always there, but it's something that is always room for improvement. And yeah, competence, something everyone struggles with. You go to NASA and you work at NASA, and everybody's really smart, but everybody's really smart on a couple of things, so there's always a competence gap. Yeah. Okay, so the picture on the screen is the James Webb Space Telescope. I got to see it when I was down at NASA Johnson Space Center, but it's the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope. So it's going to be launched and is going to be outside the orbit of the moon, and has infrared and visible light optics on it. It's the mirror area is about 3 times the size of the Hubble mirror, and it's really cool because these are plated in 24 karat gold. But you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the projector, maybe on the call, but there are these little lines in between their hexagons, and each of those is mounted on a 6-axis plate. And so what that means is, so like when they launched Hubble, they had problems with the mirror not being warped slightly, and they had a couple of other optic problems. But each of these mirrors being mounted on a 6-axis means the mirror can change shape off of a command, so they can fine tune it and readjust it to change the focus point. And so it was in cryogenic testing in that picture that I showed of the Apollo module inside that test chamber. It went in there, and so it was chilled to about 20 Kelvin in that chamber and did all the engineering tests. That's the flight hardware as they're putting it in the chamber. Let me exit out of this and go to the call. I will unmute my computer. Does anybody on the call have any questions? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they heard nothing this entire time. Technology's great. Once, twice. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you for those that joined on the call.